In this video, I'm gonna be walking you through the fifth principle of art, which is proportion. So proportion is similar to space, except now we're taking it one step further. So how big are individual elements within a shot in relation to one another? And how do we position them to make it look appealing to the eye? So in this video, I'm gonna run you through 10 different proportions that you can implement into your photography. And a lot of cameras will have these proportions aligned in grids within your viewfinder. So if you fiddle through your menu a bit, you can set these up so when you're looking at a shot, you can make sure things are aligned correctly. So with that being said, let's start from the top with the rule of thirds. And this is probably the most popular photography rule of all time. Chances are, even if you're not a photographer, you've probably heard it mentioned in everyday life at some point. What this grid does is it divides an image into 9 different distinct sections. And these lines that go across the screen will meet in 4 central power points within your shot. These so-called power points are where you want to position your subject for maximum effect. So this rule generally works well with scenes that don't have a lot going on and you're just looking for a way to position a main element in your shot to make it slightly more appealing than the average shot. Therefore, if you're a beginner, the rule of thirds is a great place to start. The first example I want to show you is this image right here taken at the Golden Gate Bridge in California. So as you can see, we got that horizon line about at the 2/3 line there, and then we have that chick positioned at one of the power points in the shot. So we're using this rule to its maximum effect. And this doesn't just apply towards people. You can also use this with landscape elements. So for example, check out this shot right here. So this was taken at a waterfall in Honduras. And as you can see, we have that waterfall in one of the PowerPoints, and then we also have that fern in another one of the PowerPoints in the shot. The next proportion I want to go over is called the golden spiral. This golden spiral is also known as the Fibonacci sequence. So there is a lot of math and science theory behind this about why it's appealing to the eye. I'm not going to get into it because it is fairly complicated, but there are a ton of YouTube videos out there about that if you want to learn the science behind this sequence. Let me show you an example of how you could use this. So for example, we have this shot right here where you can see I'm standing on that rock. And if you overlay the grid on it, you could see we have this spiral formation that just pulls the eye deeper and deeper into the shot. So it's a nice way to just guide the eye further into your image. The next proportion I want to go over is called the golden triangles. And this proportion consists of 4 different triangles within a shot. And when they meet in the middle, they form a 90-degree angle. So generally you want to fill these triangles with either positive or negative space, or you want to have a certain point of interest aligning where those triangles meet in the center of the shot. So for example, check out this shot right here. It's another shot of the Golden Gate Bridge, and as you can see in that right bottom corner, we have that darker negative part of the image, and then on the left side we have that beautiful sky with the Golden Gate Bridge and that perfectly framed boat in the corner there. So as you can see, we're just using that triangle to divide the image in half. Another example would be this image right here of this agave plant. As you can see, the main agave plant in the front right there is positioned at one of those power points. And if you overlay the grid over the top of it, you can see how this works out perfectly. The next proportion I want to go over is called a vanishing point. And this is essentially where you have elements in the shot that get smaller and smaller as they go to an ultimate vanishing point. And at this vanishing point, the eye in the shot can't see anymore, and it leaves the shot open to the interpretation of the viewer. So vanishing points are a great way to add mystery to a shot and to help demonstrate the size of certain objects. So for example, check out this shot right here. This was taken in a misty forest in Oregon, and as you can see, as you go further and further down that road, it eventually leads to that inevitable mist, and we have the trees going further and further into the distance. Another example would be this shot of this glowing railroad that I have right here. So as you can see, those railroads get further and further into the distance, and it just provides a nice leading line for the eye. So one of the main points of this proportion is that you don't want it to lead to something. You want to just keep going forever and just give that impression of infinity within a shot. The next proportion I want to go over is called a V arrangement. And this is essentially where you find a V either upwards or downwards within your shot. So let me show you this example right here. As you can see, we got these rocks that are positioned in a V shape, and they lead the eye towards those hazy mountains in the backdrop. So this is a great way to pull the eye either to the top or the bottom of the scene. You just simply got to look for a V in a shot. The next proportion I wanted to walk through is the L arrangement. So similar to the V, except now we're just looking for a L within your shot. So check out this shot right here. So we have this image of this heron at a sunset in Louisiana. And as you can see on the left side and the bottom side of the image, we have a lot of dark spots. So this creates a nice L that helps give this image structure. The next proportion I wanted to go over is called a S arrangement. So this is essentially just finding a curvy line in your shot that looks like an S. So check out this shot right here that I took in Tennessee. As you can see, we got that nice leisurely S of the river leading up to that mountain in the corner there. So it's just a great way to make shots feel relaxing and very lackadaisical. However, you can figure out ways to contrast this. So for example, check out this shot right here. So we got that standard S formation in this shot here, except this was taken at a absolutely brutal hike in Colorado. This was between two 14ers, thousands of feet of elevation gain, and it took us all day to do this, and it was in the scorching heat. So contrasting that easy, leisurely S with a very difficult, strenuous hike was a nice way to add a nice contrast to the shot. So definitely a lot of fun ways to mess around with S's. The next proportion I wanted to go over is called centering point. And this is exactly like it sounds like. You put your subject in the very center of your image. And for a lot of newbies, this is generally the go-to composition just because of the mainstream advice to center your subject. And this is good advice. However, I would urge you to only use it for very important or very powerful subjects. So you don't want to just center everything in your shots. You want to use it wisely. So for example, check out this shot right here. We got the sun as the very center point in the shot, and everything in the image revolves around it. So we have those two trees that are popping off to the sides that almost look like wings that are framed perfectly. And then you have me standing over the shot with my legs between the sun. Another example is this drone shot right here of this church from above. So obviously the church has a lot of symbolism for power as it's pointing a cross up to God. So we have that cross directly framed in the center. And I actually had to use a warp tool on this image to help make that road on the outside frame it even better to give the image even that much more power. One final example of the centering point is this shot right here. So as you can see, we have this plantation taken in Louisiana. It's almost like a vanishing point composition, except we have those trees leading to a giant house. So instead of just going off into infinity, we now are giving this house a ton of importance, especially because we have all of those leading lines in the walkway leading the eye towards it. So use the center point wisely. The next proportion is called framing depth. And this is essentially where you find elements of the foreground to frame your image with. And this just helps guide the eye even more into the shot. One example of this is this shot right here, which I took in Utah. As you can see, we have that subject of the girl in the road with the yellow jacket, and we have those nice branches of the tree to help frame it on the outside of this image. Another example would be this image right here. So I used this earlier in the course, and it's a great example of framing because we have this circular window that is being used as a foreground to frame her face in the shot. Usually whenever I'm struggling to find a composition out in nature, this is one of my go-tos. So you just look for something circular that you can look through and then see what kind of subjects you can find within that. The final proportion I want to go over is called filling the frame, which is one of the easiest methods to use. And generally use this for textures or patterns. It's essentially taking one subject and making it the entirety of the shot. So it provides a great minimalism vibe to the image. So for example, check out this image right here, where we just have these simple green plants taken at this botanical garden. This is one of my favorite methods to use if I'm warming up. So those are all of the proportions that I wanted to run through. One way to practice these is to go out with the intention of just shooting one of these proportions and trying to find it in nature. That way you can get really good at one and then start implementing more and more into your workflow. And then once you do this enough, you're just gonna start seeing these compositions emerging in real life, even when you don't have a camera around you. It's pretty crazy. So practice those. Let's go ahead and get into the next video.